compromise his charge so they could give him the lightest sentence possible, thanks to Acosta, which is like at the James Jesus Angleton of this investigation, right? So you basically just let him off the hook, and that's why they only have one minor. Even Michael Tracy has to admit they had sexual contact, maybe intercourse. He doesn't know. Before she turned, while she was 16, and the last time, like he said, from 16 to 17. So he had sex with her one last time the day before she turned she turned 18. On the last day she was 17 years old, and that was where their relationship ended. And he has to admit that.
Honestly, okay. Okay, you wanna have sex with the? No, honestly, you think people are stupid? They calculate. They took a clock or I don't know what. Like okay, let's see in 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we have sex. Seriously.
Nilly, try to make a point though. I know you're kind of just like trotting over it, but if you want to make a point, you can. But yeah, we just heard it, right?
1, 2, 3, 4. Now you have to fuck me or I fuck you. No, seriously.
Nilly, relax. All right, bottom line. All right.
We put it. No.
Nilly, hold on. Like you're killing you're kind of killing the listening experience here first. So just chill out. Look, bottom line, it's very fucking obvious. He liked girls that were underage, and as soon as they became 18, it was no longer fun for him, and he would move on. Even Michael Tracy, his most devout defender, has to admit it to Glenn Greenwald. It took 8 minutes to get there. Because here's where it started. Florida for prostitution charges. And never said any length, which was what makes this interview footage in Bannon's position so unique. Because Epstein was very averse to the press, at least, especially post his 2008-2009 entry of a guilty plea in Florida for prostitution charges. And never.
They weren't quite prostitution charges. They were involved.
No, they were literally prostitution charges.
What?
I mean, they were literally prostitution charges, Glenn. This is why I've been
not involving minors. It's not involving minors. Just ordinary.
No, I'll explain to you. Do you want me to explain?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, we would love for you to explain it 800 more times, Michael Tracy. Like, why? Just get rid of that one word. It's very obvious. That's what the charge is. You hear him at the end. Yes, he had sexual relations with a 16-year-old. He had sex with her up until the last day she was 17 years old, and then the relation stopped. Bro, what else? He makes it seem like they made Epstein plead to this, even though he didn't really do it, just because so that they can open up a loophole for the victims to get money out of Epstein later. That is his take. That's his position. I'm like, dude, if this is your synthesis of what happened here, maybe your opinion is just not actually worth anything at all. Maybe it's just complete dog shit and your ideas are retarded and you don't understand how to process thoughts. Anyway, that's just my take on it. All right. Coming back up. What's up, Sarah? Do you have a good show? Or
I didn't have a show. I had company. It's all right. Yeah. What are you guys talking about now?
So we read your post up there. I read it. Dude, that's cool. So what do you make of this?
Right? I don't know. It could be true. Yeah, you know how guys are. I took it. I mean, I read it both ways. I read it with the kind of, I read it as like Bubba's, like, like maybe they made like a Photoshop of something and they're like kidding around, like Trump going to prison, he's got to blow Bubba, or you could take it literally and it might mean Bill Clinton and that he was actually giving him a blowjob. But they could also just be joking around about, the PP tapes, and now Russia has a funny picture of Trump blowing some guy, It could be a lot of things. So, and I think that's how Epstein writes. Honestly, I've been reading a lot of these emails, and a lot of the stuff is very vague, and it feels like it's like that on purpose.
Yeah, there's like a codedness to it. I remember
check your DMs
on that too. Yeah. So, they have their own kind of little coded language. Like, how much power does Bubba still have? Now, remember, the pinnacle of Epstein's operation, like the thing I think he is still most proud of, was the fact that he was able to compromise Bubba, Bill Clinton. That did so much for the Israeli agenda, getting Clinton compromised, and then eventually, right, like I said, FTO list, and like who knows what else. So I think he looks at his compromise of Clinton as like the highlight of his career, and it genuinely is. You know, it's a big deal.
Truly, and I don't know if it's just me, but like if you look at messages between me and my friends, it also looks like coded language, right? I think, I don't know if that's why I'm asking another dude, is it the same for them? Because it is for me.
Are you talking about blowing Bill Clinton though?
No, but you might say something like kind of like that about someone, like you know, like Joe was talking to that dude so long, I thought he was going to ask for his number and take him home. You know what I mean? Like, there could be messages like that. So I don't know.
Oh yeah, yeah. What they're saying is that like they're still very keyed in to all of the ins and outs of Trump, and maybe harbors like some resentment there, right? Like between Trump and like, look, Nicholas Tartaglione. This is his story. The guy who was in prison with Jeffrey. He said that essentially whoever solicited him wanted to pass this deal along while they were both in prison. They shared a jail cell, right? This is 2019. In order for Epstein to give up compromising information on Trump as like a get out of jail card. Like that's what the Democrats wanted. They wanted Tartaglione to go rough him up and for Epstein to give them some kind of information about compromising information about Trump. Allegedly, that never happened. And then he was killed. Now, were they going to inevitably kill him anyway? And this was just like a last grab, like, hey, got anything on Trump, right? And he was like, no, right? Because obviously he understands he shouldn't tell a bad cop, a serial killer police officer in prison with him anything about Trump. Because as soon as he tells him, that's it. But if he knows that that's what they want, use that as leverage to get out or get favorable peace or something, right? Because the first time he barely even went to prison. This idea that he didn't think he'd beat the charge and that he would have to kill himself is insane. He beat the charges the first time, and if anything, he had become even more like influential or had even more information by 2019. So yeah, I think they tried to get Epstein as a last thing to compromise Trump. Maybe he had that compromise, right? It seems like they're really paying attention to everything he's doing, again, because they're neighbors. Like, Sarah brings up another one of these emails where it shows they're flying in and out of the same airport near Mar-a-Lago, like almost on a weekly basis, right? So Trump is going back and forth to Mar-a-Lago for the weekend. Jeffrey has Lolita Express there. They're coordinating around each other's time slots. Like, whether they're like having tea and cookies together, they're at least Epstein is very well aware of Trump's coming and going.
I saw them in the Hamptons together. Like it was him, Trump, and Sammy Sosa, which was like a famous pitcher at the time. All three of them were together at a party.
Sammy Sosa was not a pitcher. Like, why do you do this to me? Why are you doing this?
What was Sosa? He was a baseball player. I know that.
Yeah, but he wasn't a pitcher.
Fucking pinch hitter. How dare you?
I don't watch.
How dare you, sir?
I know the man was huge, but,
Yeah, he was huge.
That's all I know.
And now he's white. Go figure, he's white now.
Is he full of Michael Jackson?
Yeah, he pulled a Michael Jackson. He did the lightning cream. It looks crazy.
What was his nickname?
The Bat? Wasn't it the Bat?
Was it the Bat? I'm thinking Poppy, no? Or was
No,
that the other guy?
That was the other guy.
That was Canseco, I think.
Yeah.
He was famous for steroids too, right?
Oh, they all took
Slam and Sammy.
Slam and Sammy.
So I will tell you this from firsthand actual knowledge myself. When you do steroids, you have an insatiable sex drive. And I'll just leave it there.
But shriveled tiny balls.
To the point where you would blow Bill Clinton, though? Would you do that? Steroids? Oh, that depends on if you're a gender bender or whatnot. But no, if you're hetero, the first thing you do is when you see a female, you go into Neanderthal mode and you go, oh. And you think about, so yeah.
I think in his defense, somebody said that he would wear these, Epstein would wear these testosterone patches. So he was on HRT, which is not super uncommon, but apparently he had trouble with, standing up straight, or like, that's apparently like the issue. That's why he wasn't always like having sex with them. like he was doing other stuff. Apparently, that's the excuse that they use. But again, this is like a sick, demented, crazy person who probably needs like some really wild levels of arousal because he's just done so many horrible things to children. So I don't know, but they use that as an excuse that he couldn't have raped them because he was on testosterone and he couldn't get it up or something. So anyway, I don't know why I remember that.
Quick question to Sarah, real quick, before I finish cooking. Sarah, should I make what I sent you my new PFP? They'll troll the right.
Yes, everything to troll the right. Look at Dr. Wangaff. We're all trolling the right at this point. I'm literally dressed as a communist in my picture.
Oh man,
we're all trolling the right at this
that's
point.
Hilarious. Damn, we're getting a beam. All right, everybody get your Soviet hats on. Let's go.
Fuck that. The only good commie's a dead one. I'm no starkly anti-communist here. Sorry, can't do it.
We're just trolling because they make listen, they do such horrible things. Like they bombed 10 countries. They struck like the day before Charlie got assassinated. Israel was trying to assassinate people in Qatar, right? Like all this crazy stuff. But then Nick Fuentes comes out and talks about Stalin, right? And they make him out to be like the worst thing ever, as if he's perpetrating the crimes. And when really their behavior is what, everything bad that they say about Stalin is what they're doing today. But if Nick references it in passing, like remembering that December 18th is Stalin's birthday. The reason it happened, by the way, if you guys don't know the story, the reason it came up in Tucker's interview is because Nick was talking about the day someone tried to come to his house and kill him. Remember the guy with the helmet and the crossbow and the gun? That happened on December 18th. And Nick talks about how weird it is because he was acutely aware that it was Stalin's birthday, right? And then he's like, makes this off the cuff remark. He's like, I'm a big fan. He explains it later. It's not like he thinks Stalin is a good thing. He's just like a strong man in government, and that's what he kind of respects about it. Not that he's like a great human being. So yeah. Anyway,
I would say Stalin was kind of a fucking monster.
Oh yeah. Well, he admits that. I think we all admit that. But they make it like they're doing actual monster stuff on a day-to-day basis, and then they just like pin it on Nick for talking about it, for like even in passing. That's why it's like this double standard is insane. It's like, so if you stand against everything that Stalin stood for, why are you repeating the same actions that he used to do and covering it up as like, your supremacist right to do so? Anyway, I hope that made sense.
If I may, really quick, I don't see us voting our way out of this. From everything I'm learning, it's going to take a monster to do it.
Yeah, look, first off, like, we got to change, like, and I think it's been happening. We need a real demographic shift, and I don't mean just full-on cultural replacement here. We just have to expect and demand better for ourselves. But people in general are just either simps or they're so cocked, they're so afraid. So, like, remember with MAGA, they wouldn't acknowledge anything. Every campaign promise was very clearly thrown out the window as soon as he got into office, and they're sitting there telling you to trust the plan. No, dude, we're not trusting the plan. Like, you need to start holding these people accountable. So, like, hopefully what we can do, I know we're not going to go check a box and change this. I think we all agree to that. That's not how it's going to happen. We just need to understand the incentives of what's going on and just stop being cucks for Trump or for whoever's in government and demand the best for our actual country. But what does that mean? What does that entail? What is the best for our country?
Touch on that for a second, Trillion.
Yeah, hop in there.
During all this fucking scandal, we're still sending $40 million a fucking week to the Taliban. Let that sink in. During the government shutdown, by the way, that's been coming out today.
Isn't there a bill?
I think it was Burkhart.
Is there a bill?
Burkhart put forward the bill. Yeah, Burkhart. I think Tim Burkhart is his name or some shit like that, put forward a bill to stop the funding of the Taliban because he was kind enough to tell us all that even during the government shutdown, the Taliban was still getting their fucking checks.
Yeah, it's Burkett, I believe. I think that's a pronunciation. You could be right, though. Yeah, that's how wild this is. Like, I played you guys the little bit of the clip from Elon talking about Doge, like how much fraud there is. And he's not even saying it's possible to eliminate all the fraud. He's just saying, like, let's trend that line to zero, right? Like, let's start the process of removing the fraud over time. And they don't even want to do that. They send them death threats. And it's the Republicans just as much as the Democrats. Like, look, 80% of the benefit goes to the Democrats in this government grift. 20% goes to the Republicans, but they all agree that it should keep going, even though the Democrat interests are so overrepresented and it's actually jeopardizing Republican interests. They don't care as long as they can get their piece. This is where we're at. So which way are you going to vote to begin with? For the people who are doing most of the grift, or people doing some of it and too stupid to realize that they're jeopardized by the other side? They're being out-competed on the grift. Which one are you going to vote for? The griftiest?
This is one of my favorite little gifts to give.
Oh, sorry. I want to see if Candace is on yet. Yeah.
I love how it looks so elegant and tasteful.
Alright, I'm trying something different here to do it from my tablet, stream from my tablet. Can y'all come in the live chat? Let me know if I should do it on my phone or... I think it probably looks better to y'all on my phone because probably most of y'all are on your phone.
Last days, they brought in a plasma laser in order to destroy all their rifles, right? So they were sitting there just like destroying all this gear, and at the end of the day, they like left all the actual valuable stuff and just booked it out of there with like people hanging off the wheels of the airplane. Like, it's crazy because we did not need to leave Bagram. That was like the one thing that we had established and secured, and this is her take on it. She was like, there was no reason to leave Bagram at all. We put all this resources, our stuff was there. They just destroyed all of our kit, sent us out. We couldn't even recover some of our stuff, our own stuff. Like, for example, like they could have actually, like each soldier could have taken their stuff and left with it. They didn't even let them do that. They made sure that they left behind as much as they could for Al Qaeda to go in there and get very, very well armed. You look at the Sarah, or maybe you guys have seen this, the Al Qaeda military parade. Right, so we had our shitty little DC parade with like a chick holding like a little quadcopter drone, like walking down the street, right? Well, go look at Afghanistan. They had a military parade too, and it's all our gear. They're marching down the street at their parade in American gear, American weapon, vehicles, like all of this stuff. It's so crazy.
We spent like $200,000 for every one of those up-armored Humvees, just to up-armor. I think we pay like $280 just for the Humvee and another $200 to up-armor, and we left them all there.
Yeah, and now they're driving down the street at their Al Qaeda military parades in our up-armored Humvees. What do you say? Which side do you even vote for? So yeah, this isn't going to happen by checking a box. Like, we've just gotten too complacent. You know, because look, since the nation was established, and I love the constitutionalist people, I support your vision, but here's the problem, is that this subversive force over 100 years, couple hundred years, 250, you guys get it, right? So pretty much since we laid out the Constitution, have been subverting and chipping away at the fabric of this nation, whether it's through lawfare, the money supply, manipulating currency, so on, right? Through war, through attrition. They've been chipping away at these rights this entire time. And now we wake up in 2025, realize what have we done, and we demand we set it back to the way that it was in the Founding Fathers' time. And all the people who have been ruling over us, chipping away at our rights, freedoms, and liberties this entire time are looking back at us going, you want it all back? You want us to just like, we're not going to give it all back. What do you mean, right? It's kind of like the Palestinians asking the Israelis to give them back land. Like, it's not even on the table. Like, we're not... I played the clip of Benny Morris and Norman Finkelstein arguing on Lex Friedman's show. We talked about this the other day, too. How the Israelis don't care about international law, like, at all, whatsoever. They don't care. They don't care, flat out. But the Palestinians, if they don't follow international law, then they're barbarians, they're evil, they're henchmen, they're whatever. You know, I'm just saying we're kind of in the same position as the Palestinians are begging for their land. We're begging for our country back. And they're looking back at us saying, like, hell no. We have put all of this in. We stole it from you fair and square. We don't really care what the law is, the Constitution. We don't really care what the Constitution says. Here's where you're at. Might makes right. You know, you're cooked, right? And so, yeah, we're not voting our way out of it. Go ahead, Timmy. Timmy G?
Sorry. What's called? I was just wondering if, like, we're also like looking at just talking about accountability. Also, like, literally, none of these politicians have any. We have no sort of repercussions on them of any shape or size anymore, and they're not going to put it in place themselves. So, like, I mean, down to even the insider trading, let alone they're putting in lawsuits, slush funds, all this shit. Like, I guess I'm just kind of bitching right now as I'm thinking about it out loud. It wasn't a clear, concise thought, but it's amazing on that front. And then just watching like Miriam Adelson, the UFC people, they're also caring about data. I don't know if anyone knows, but the UFC makes their money from data. It doesn't make its money from fighting. I worked for 3 of the families behind it, and that was a shocker to me when I learned that. So what they had was an Ergon, Ari Emanuel, who also his brother Rahm Emanuel, who essentially was one of the main creators of the great financial crisis while he was in the Clinton administration. And then Miriam Adelson buying the Dallas Mavericks, the NBA partnership with the MGM, and like they're giving us fucking what, a couple of NBA players as a bust on an illegal gambling thing when they literally just want to own gambling as another way of taxation us. Like, I don't know if you've been to any of the cities either where like Louisiana or New Orleans, everything seems safe and sound around the casinos. But as soon as you get out within 2 blocks or 3 blocks, it's scary as shit. So I don't know. I'm just bitching actually the more that I'm saying this. So thanks for letting me rant.
No, all valid points. All valid points.
May I?
Yeah, jump in.
Okay, sorry. So I like to try and be polite. Yeah. So with what you just touched on, all this dark money and the data and everything. So, okay. Can you stop? Yeah. I actually had a contract with the Fertitta brothers there for a while. I used to do some of the landscape work out at Moody Gardens. And is that who you're referring to in terms of the UFC owners were the Fertittas back then?
Yeah, I worked for, I'll just flat out say who I worked for. We managed the wealth after the liquidity of the COO, the Chief Operating Officer, Chief Compliance, and General Counsel. So, like,
Can you mute that mic, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm cutting up Pico. Sorry.
So they're still there actually to this day. So the Fertittas had their own separate family office, and then Dana White had his money at Delaware Street with Wayne Huizenga, the blockbuster Wayne waste management guy. But I would get the rumblings and insights into the operating business. They've sold it twice so far.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it went from Zuffa, which is the Fertittas, to WME Entertainment, which now they're under the same umbrella as the WWE, I think. But I actually I like that you brought the whole Miriam Adelson thing, because I think more and more this investigation tucks itself into the finances. I wonder if she had something to do with it, because if you look at the list of people, it's all of her competitors.
I think 100%. I've seen her
on the casinos in Vegas. Okay, she owns this thing.
Sands Corp.
Oracle. No, shut up. By the way. Okay.
What?
Yeah, she owns.
What?
All her casinos are in China.
No. She doesn't own it.
No, she owns the Venetian too. And
no, they sell it. Do you think when they buy, they sell it out? So anyway, by the way, they found out that she's born in Palestine. yeah, she's born.
Okay, cool. Can I tell you real quick, since I've seen her venture capital fund real quick? Thank you. So they're raising $100 million venture capital fund also for gamifying different casino operations, different like iPhone apps, mobile apps, and things like that too. So that little gambling ring took away from her mobile app distribution too. She has, the Macau is definitely making more money than anything else, but the Dallas Mavericks purchase also was a big partnership with the MGM, which made the
anymore because
Lily, you cannot continue doing this. You
We
need
just
to
can't
stop.
hear you.
I love it.
What did we
Now it's good.
I love it. It's disgusting, bitch. It's talking. Please.
It's the most
tell you.
difficult fucking accent to understand.
I love you.
One bitch with a weird voice. Listen, come on.
All right, be nice. Hold on, I don't want to do this in this space. I'm trying to play the Thomas Crooks thing. Yeah, Endeavor, and
Oh, you still haven't played it yet? Oh, I'm glad I'm here because I want to hear other people's thoughts on it.
I'm starting at like the second half of it. So if you guys heard the first half in Sarah's space,
But I'm glad. Yeah. I'm glad because I get to hear Joa and Timmy's thoughts on it, and Yelena is here as well. So.
Let's cook this. So it's the second half. All right, he does this like ad break, and this is right after. So yeah, let's see where we're at here.
Posting overt threats of violence against public figures on YouTube. The FBI was issuing contracts to
Let me back it up another 5 seconds so we get to the start of that, because it's important, right? This goes back to the data thing, right? Perfect segue.
Change with a mysterious figure affiliated with a group that we know is being monitored by the U.S. State Department. It turns out that around the same time that Thomas Crooks was making these searches and posting overt threats of violence against public figures on YouTube, the FBI was issuing contracts to private sector tech surveillance firms to harness the power of mass data collection tools that would monitor social media for people just like Thomas Crooks. It's hard to imagine that Thomas Crooks, who was making these posts publicly and in his own name, had not been identified and looked at closely by federal law enforcement. In fact, it's impossible to imagine. What do we know? Well, we know that the FBI had access to these YouTube comments, and rather than giving us valuable information about them, giving us a sense of why Thomas Crooks did what he did, they used a selective read of those comments to lie about what Thomas Crooks was thinking. 2.5 weeks after the attack on July 30th, a source familiar with the investigation told CNN that, quote, federal investigators are looking into a YouTube account possibly connected to Crooks, in which the user espoused political violence as well as anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes. Well, of course, it wasn't possibly connected to Thomas Crooks, as the FBI knew full well it was Thomas Crooks' account. There was never any question about that. And yet the same day, the FBI's then deputy director made the same dishonest claim before Congress. The week previous, then FBI Director Christopher Wray publicly questioned whether Trump was even shot.
With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear.
In February 2025, the New York Post reported that, quote, the FBI has obstructed efforts to solve the mystery of why Thomas Matthew Crooks, who left no manifesto, did what he did. And this fact, said the Post, left local law enforcement as well as Crooks' former friends, classmates, and teachers frustrated. The level of lying and obstruction is shocking. Less than a month after the shooting, Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a former police officer, traveled to Butler to conduct his own investigation into what happened. When he arrived, he discovered a disturbing fact. The FBI released Crooks' body for cremation 10 days after July 13th. This wasn't known to the public until Higgins arrived in Butler on August 5th. When the coroner told the congressman, quote, he would never have released Crooks' body to the family for cremation or burial without specific permission from the FBI. The timing of Crooks' cremation is notable. The day Crooks' body was burned was also the day the House Homeland Security and Oversight Committees had begun their investigations into the shooting. The fact the body was cremated made it impossible for investigators outside the FBI to verify the coroner and autopsy report. You can't do a new tox screen because the body doesn't exist. According to Higgins, quote, this action by the FBI can only be described by any reasonable man as an obstruction to any following investigative effort. Another notable detail is that photos from the day after the shooting show an FBI agent hosing down the site where Crooks died. High-level intelligence officials and congressional sources told us this is very strange, that the FBI usually hires out crime scene cleanup to third-party contractors. But in this case, they did it themselves, leaving no blood and no tissue for anyone else to analyze. In the photo, the agent's shirt says he's from the Technical Hazards Response Unit, the unit that collects traditional forensic evidence contaminated with hazardous materials. After the shooting, the FBI sent Crooks' phone to the Bureau's laboratory at Quantico, Virginia.
By the way, the guy who's hosing off, I don't know why he didn't say this, so it's like the hazardous material stuff, but it says FBI in big letters across his back, and then it says like hazardous material handling, whatever, right? So it was the FBI, or at least somebody in the FBI shirt from that department, the hazardous whatever department, was hosing down the rooftop where Thomas Crooks was shot in the head. All right, they burned his body on the day the investigation began. Right, so right before they knew that the investigation was beginning and this would all get locked up and more difficult, right? There would be custody issues and all of that. They went ahead and burned the body, can't do a tox screen, and then started the investigation. So technically, while they burnt the body, it was not tampering evidence since no investigation had been launched. How do you explain this stuff? It's a cover-up. It has to be. How can this be such a perfect sequence of events to abscond with the crime and never learn the truth? It's like we see with the Charlie Kirk thing. What do they do on a Sunday in Utah? Nobody works on a Sunday. You know, it's still a very religious place. Everyone's like, it is pretty monolithic as far as like Mormonism in Utah. On Sunday, they get this construction company, this landscaping company out there to start tearing up all of the soil. But in this case, the investigation was already in place, so they did tamper with evidence. The FBI had every reason to stop anybody. And by the way, the renovation is not being organized by the FBI or law enforcement or being blessed by them. It's being done by the school, because we have the text messages between the school official or the school employee and the landscaping company. They're even asked, do you want us to put a uniform there? Right? So there's no police overseeing the area that Charlie Kirk was killed. There's not even a police officer, much less the FBI or anything. And the landscaping company guy responds and says, "No, my guys know how to keep quiet, right, or how to be silent, or something along those lines." So not only did they renovate it during an ongoing investigation, but also refused oversight or supervision by a police officer. All right, it's just so crazy to me how many. It's slightly different, like I'll give it that, right? It's just so crazy how many of these like anomalies are present in the handling of crooks and the investigation they did with the FBI. And I can imagine there's only one real reason why it would go down like this. You guys want to do a quick round of hands, and I'll go and we still got about 15 minutes or so. I think Tony just got up here. Tony, what's up, man?
What's up, Gerland? Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the Epstein files. I think it's the first chink in the armor that we've seen in this whole evasion mechanism that they've kind of concocted with all the different ways that they're trying to address our attention in these various places with all the censorship and whatnot. I think that the Epstein files is the first chink in the armor, and you've kind of seen all this whirling and whirling that's been going on in the government, and you can kind of see something like this that was going to eventually happen. I think that there's going to be a lot more. Well, I guess the question is, what do you think will happen, in following this, and who made the mistake that made all of this?
Oh. Did I lose connection? Yeah, it was me. Let me jump. I gotta jump back in.
As far as just
have you seen Bitcoin? Bitcoin's at $94,000.
That's a good point, because I think that all these people are like oligarchs, and they all own parts and shares of Bitcoin. And I think a part of that is a lot of Bitcoin is getting laundered out into the public eye, or into the public hands. And that's that's a part of this whole thing, is that like a lot of things are just happening right now, and a lot of money is going in all these different ways. And it's insane. You could see something like this that was going to happen. No one really knew what it was, but I guess it was this. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know if oversight is like something that is like unbiased or anything like that. But man, I just think think that this would ever happen.
Did you hear that news? So now they're going to start. Trump put out a post. I think I still have it up there. Yeah. So Sat Chaser put it up. There's the first one. So now they're going to try to lock down any inquiry into the Epstein files by, I guess, putting together a committee and opening. I guess they're reopening the investigation. So now, anytime they're asked about it, they can just say, the guy I forgot his name is Christopher Wray. You just heard from him there, right? Where he's like, I'm not sure if a piece of shrapnel or whatever. We're not even sure what hit Donald Trump. Like I explained.
Oh my gosh, this thing is so stupid.
With them, so they're going down. Democrats, make no mistake about it, they're pretty cooked too, but they want to make sure that the Republicans go down with them. Now, all of the people in Trump's cabinet want to run for president. That's why they're there. They're not there to make America great. They're not there to help us or do what's good for our nation at all. They are there to go and run for president. And so now, if they all go along with this like hiding of the Epstein stuff, that damages them so greatly in any upcoming election. the Democrats are way better at politics than the Republicans. The Republicans suck at this. The one thing that they had was the faith of the American people that they would do the right thing. All empty promises. In short order, bombing Iran, bombing Venezuela, pretending like he solved all of these wars that like didn't even exist. I'm saying that half in jest. So I think it is the Democratic playbook to a large extent, but like with the Doge thing, 80% of it, the fraud was Democrat and 20% was Republican. So they're implicated in it just as much. I think they're just trying to put sticks in their spokes, in the Republican spokes. They got way too much momentum here, and try to just tear them down, like wear them down going into midterms. Midterms is the House and the Senate are very close, right? It is Republican controlled, but like slightly. And in fact, just like on party lines, it's very close. But look at the big, beautiful bill. It was 50-50 in the Senate, and Vance had to vote in order to break the tie. So could they midterms could potentially pose a huge problem for for the entire rest of the Trump administration, essentially gridlocking, forcing Republicans to come to the table. And Trump has shown in bad faith that he's happy to do everything unilaterally. Hey, tariffs, I'll do that under Emergency Presidential Powers Act. The reason they reopened the government is probably because, or a lot to do with the way that Supreme Court hearing went, right? So that went to the Supreme Court. Does Trump, through Emergency Presidential Powers Act, have the authority to set tariffs the way he's been doing it, right? Just off the cuff, here's 100%, right? No math involved, no accounting, just random shit from the president. If you heard that hearing, it was very clear that the Supreme Court is not on board. They very much understand that his powers do not extend to setting tariff rates to raise revenue for the country. It is very clearly not allowed. He can set quotas, he can blockade. He can say you can't import, you can't export this product or set a quota, but what he can't do is adjust the rates in order to raise revenue under Emergency Powers Act. So now they're going to they got Congress back, they got government back in session, because if they want those tariffs, this is like their big win for the economy, and we'll see how that goes, because you saw what happened last time we had tariffs, but last time we thought the tariffs were getting put in place, this was like April or so, the market tanked. Now they're going to have to try to work together and get it done through Congress. But see, this is like this underhanded, unilateral bullshit that Trump wants to do instead of fixing the government, which is what he promised. So yeah, the Epstein files are going to make everything else that they're going to do for this administration incredibly difficult. It's not impossible. I asked Grok, so I don't know, but I asked Grok, is it actually possible for the Democrats to swing the midterm so much that they get that like 60% prevailing vote, like that veto proof, whatever it's called, right? And it's technically possible. All right, so it's possible that the Republicans get so smoked in this election that the Democrats will get that 60% threshold after midterms. That's how close we are. Anyway, I know it was a long rant, but let's hop in with Joe. Go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, about this thing. I mean, this to me just confirms that there was something. I mean, every single time, there's always something weird that happens with the evidence. Like example, 9/11, the steel was sold off within like 24 hours or something like that, which is weird. I mean, that's the evidence you want to examine.
All right, real quick, do y'all want to go listen to Candace or stay in this space right here listening? Because I was gonna go listen to Candace, but if y'all want to stay here, we'll stay here. I'm gonna jump. I don't know what to do. There it is.
You can do if you do the research, you'll see that there's a lot of people we know one of them was a governor, right? Like one of them just happened to be maybe even on the same flight with Steve Bannon as he was hanging out in China. Maybe that's possible, right? Like there's all these coincidences that start showing up where you're like, as he was hanging out in China. Maybe that's possible, right? Like there's all these coincidences that start showing up where you're like, what is happening? Like, is this a big joke? Is it a game? Are they
How are y'all not freaking talking tonight? I mean, why am I even streaming? The whole point is to hang out with y'all. Alright. Yeah, I'm gonna shut this stream down because y'all don't want